not like questionable as far as like mob stuff, but questionable in that he put a lot of his money in trusts for his children, but he wasn't treating it like a trust. He was still taking money in and out of it all the time. And I don't know anything about tax law or trusts or anything like that. But apparently when you put money in trust, you're not supposed to keep using that money. So
I'm surprised that he's able to pull it out. I would just think that something would automatically trigger that would tell somebody he's taking money out of this that he's not supposed to be taking out. But...
yeah. So he didn't. He was dead. But his estate got in some trouble for that. And he ends up having to pay. Well, not having to pay. His estate having to pay an additional $69,000, which that's significant money for taxes. The business that he had with the vending machines, the jukeboxes, that sort of thing, ends up getting taken over by another company out of Milwaukee called Pioneer Sales and Service, sometimes called Pioneer Vending. And I have to be kind of careful how I talk about Pioneer because Pioneer still exists. So I won't be too mean to them. But they ended up taking over the business. At the time they took over, there was speculation that they had hidden owners in Cleveland or Chicago. But when they were questioned, the owners were questioned by the FBI. The owners denied it. They did know that they had a financial interest in some Chicago jukebox companies that had some questionable ties. They did know some questionable people in the jukebox business, which really isn't that unusual.
Because the jukebox business was so crooked anyways, right?
Right.
At this point that if you were in the business, you probably knew somebody that was tied to somebody.
Yeah, it wouldn't at all be unusual, even if you were completely clean, for you to know some questionable jukebox people. So, so they seem pretty clean. What strikes me as kind of odd is that one of the top guys at Pioneer Sales and Service had previously been an employee of Pastors. I assume that he kind of migrated over when they purchased it. And his name was Sam Cooper.
Okay.
And what strikes me about that is Sam Cooper was super, super close with Frank Balistrieri.
Okay.
So it took us to part 3, but we're finally coming back around to Milwaukee Mafia. And he was so close that, like, when Frank's kids were growing up, they would call him Uncle Sam. They knew him as Uncle Sam. So he was very close as part of the family. But what was also interesting about this is we know now, this is only new in the last couple of years, we know now that Sam Cooper was also feeding information to the FBI.
Oh.
So while they were investigating Frank Balistrieri for his jukeboxes and other coin-operated devices, one of the main guys they were getting information from was Sam. So it's interesting to me that, like, Sam is like in this weird position where he's gained financially from Herman Pastor dying. And I'm not saying that to like imply that he killed Pastor, because I don't think he did, but he's gained financially from that. He's buddies with mob figures, but this whole time he's also an FBI informant. So Sam Cooper's an interesting character for sure.
So how is it that we just recently found out that Sam Cooper was an informant? Is it just that file nobody was able to get access to it until recently, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So nobody was able to get access to it because they never release informant files.
Okay.
And they never even tell you the names of informants. Sometimes you can figure it out. There's a couple that you can figure it out because of the way that they word the files. But the reason we found out about Sam in the last couple years is there was a big push to get all of the JFK assassination files released.
Okay.
And there's absolutely no connection between...
I was just going to say, like, how is this guy connected to the JFK assassination?
There's no connection whatsoever between the JFK assassination, Sam Cooper, or any of this. For whatever reason, when the National Archives collected all of their documentation on the JFK assassination, they had a very wide net. And so they scooped up all kinds of FBI documents, CIA documents, things from different embassies. Like, they were very, very thorough. And a lot of this stuff came up because when they were looking into the background of Jack Ruby, we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I'll come back around. When they were looking into Jack Ruby, who's the guy who shot Oswald, who is the guy who allegedly shot JFK, when they were looking into Jack Ruby was a gambler, and he had grown up in Chicago, and he knew a lot of the Chicago gamblers. And he also happened to be Jewish. So they did a very thorough investigation going around to all these mob-connected guys who happen to be Jewish. Sam Cooper happens to be Jewish. So he has no real connection to any of this. Like, he never met JFK. He probably didn't even meet Jack Ruby. But they were so thorough in looking into this. They scooped up a lot of really unrelated stuff.
So basically, they scooped up Sam Cooper's file to see if maybe he was associated with it. And once they opened the file, they realized there's nothing in here to suggest that he could possibly be associated with JFK's assassination.
Essentially, yeah.
Basically.
Essentially, yeah. And so when things have been being released over the last few years, they've been releasing things they don't normally release to the public. If somebody is marked as a high-ranking informant, what they call a top echelon informant, those names are still blacked out. Like, the National Archives is very good about not releasing that. But if you're just a regular informant, those names have now been made public. The vast majority of them are dead anyway, so it's not like it's a big deal. But the FBI's policy is, even if they're dead, they don't ever release it. So it is kind of neat to be able to see some of these guys' names go public. Anyway, circling back, one of those was Sam Cooper. So we now know that Sam Cooper, while being one of Frank Pellestri's tight business buddies, was also regularly telling the FBI about Frank's jukebox business.
Do we have any idea what turned? Do these files say what turns somebody? Like, I assume Sam Cooper got into some sort of trouble, and this is basically like a deal he made to keep himself out of prison or whatever.
I don't have that information. There's probably something there, but I don't have that yet. Like, so Sam Cooper is the subject of a file. I don't have that file yet.
Okay.
And that I can have that file because that's not his informant file. That's him as like the subject of an investigation file. So someday I will have that, and I could probably give you a better answer. But I mean, I don't know that he was ever in any real trouble, but it may have been that this prevented him from getting in some kind of trouble. I don't know. I mean, this is all speculation. For all I know, could have been a completely clean and wonderful person and just happened to have some questionable friends. I don't know. So I don't want to talk bad about the guy, but he was definitely looked into. We'll come back to that when I know more.
Mm-hmm.
So someday we'll have a Sam Cooper episode. But yeah.
So some questions for this is, first of all, so you said this Pioneer Vending or whatever the proper name of it is for.
Yeah.
So Sam Cooper worked for them, correct?
Yes.
So, and he was definitely tied to the mafia.
Yes.
Now, it could just be that Sam Cooper had a job at a vending company and happened to have a lot of ties to the mafia.
Yes.
But is there any other evidence to point that this Pioneer company may have been, the mafia may have had some control over the company? Other than Sam Cooper?
I don't think so. I don't have that in front of me to give you a great answer, but there weren't that many companies. There was Pioneer, and there's another company called London. And I know that Frank knew the guys who ran both of these companies. But I don't know that necessarily means anything other than that he was a big purchaser of what they were selling.
Right.
So they definitely were always like treated by the FBI like they were shady.